That's a lot of information. I'll just to make sure you get this, I'll say this and then we'll dismiss in prayer, and anybody who wants to stay for questions and discussion can. If Irvin is right, now what he believes is that the European Union is the revived Holy Roman Empire, which is the clay iron feet of the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So if he's right on that, and he could be, I mean, he makes a good case. He really does. If he's right on that, we are living in the time of that last world empire has to start rising here before too long. It's already formed and created, but I mean start really gaining steam. I didn't realize that the European Union was the greatest economy in the world. You know, that's why I don't know, somehow that just, I'm an American, and I think we're number one in everything, you know. And that's why they kept saying if the euro goes down, you know, when they had the big crisis, if the euro goes down, the whole world's going down. Well, I thought, well, why wouldn't we stand? Are we that tied into it? We're not the greatest economy. They are. I didn't realize that. So, anyway, Lord, thank you for the knowledge, the information, and above all, thank you for this time we are living in. It's going to be the greatest harvest time on the face of the earth, and we thank you for the opportunity of being in the center of it, being chosen by you, trusted by you, to be a people who can make a difference for you on this earth in these times, in this time and these days. In Jesus' name we thank you, and we set our faith towards rising to that occasion and being the people you need us to be on this earth. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen. Thank you for coming. If you need to go, feel free to do so. And if you want to stay and chat a bit, we're going to do that. There's a mic there and there's a mic over there. If we can get the ushers to run the mics for us, we'll kick it open for questions. I did want to point something else out. He didn't point it out, but as I was watching it, I noticed it, and I thought, oh, now I never noticed that before. The 10 horns, then you've got the Antichrist comes up and uproots 3 of the horns. The 10 horns are 10 regional geographic rulers. I don't know how that's going to set up. The Antichrist is one of those 10 to begin with. He's a ruler over a nation or a geographical area or something. He rises up and takes out 3 other ones and assumes leadership. Now, the point that I'd never really paid attention to before or saw before or whatever, I don't know, maybe some other prophecy teacher seeded this in my mind, it's the way I always looked at it, is that when the signing of the covenant, which starts the tribulation period, when the thing is signed, I was always under the impression the Antichrist, who would then be known as the man of peace, was going to be spearheading this. And he would be the one helping get that covenant signed. He may be in the background as one of the leaders in the 10 regions or nations or whatever who are doing this. He may not be out in front at the beginning. It's when he rebels, rises up, takes out 3 of the other cohorts, and assumes control, the little horn comes up, is when he really turns into a predominant public figure, possibly. So, I just thought, well, it's going to be easy to know who he is. He's the one who's going to be spearheading this whole thing. That may not be true. He may be in the background to begin with and comes out during the 7 years. He comes out to the front. Anyway, start over here.
I have a question about end times martyrdom and Christianity and that kind of the beginning of the service.
Okay.
Okay. Just thinking about those pictures of ISIS and those little kids being piled up to be martyred and such, and I think that's disgusting. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that is I'd like to see a spec ops insertion team go in there and do some persecution on ISIS, in all reality. And then just translating that to a hypothetical situation here. So ISIS is in Cambridge. I'm not going to turn to my family and be like, well, let's crack some sodas and go get the lawn chairs out and sit on the porch and wait for the ISIS vans to come pick us up. and pull the. Personally, to me, I think that's a pretty feeble approach, and I don't know. I mean, I'm going to tell Ezra. I'm going to teach Ezra. I mean, that kind of thing happens. Let's start making some sandbags. Let's build a fighting position. I mean, they're going to come make war on us. Let's make war on them. Shoot them in the belly. Spill their blood. I mean, like, I just don't like. It kind of brings. I'll end my question with this, but it kind of brings me back to that whole Bielski partisan Jews that the Nazis came in, and during World War II, the group of men that fled into the Polish forests, and there they were able to sustain themselves, their family, and 1,500 plus Jews. They were able to operate warfare and operate missions on the Nazis, and successful ones, and sustain themselves through the whole war and the whole Nazi occupation. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the feeble, last-day Christian mindset?
You're a military man, evidently. No, I'm with you. It's interesting you bring it up from that approach because, again, the assignment the Lord gave me to give to us is what do we do to what if I'm dead and gone when this thing just erupts? What principles can I pass to my children, they pass to their children, and maybe on to the great-grandchildren that will not only sustain them out there, but help them reach a lot of people for Jesus out there. So my mind has been swimming in that whole thing. And this last week it was, I was looking at different things. I've been researching different things. And the thing that, we say it, but it's like you get a new dose of it and then it soaks in as reality. The thing that just really came to the surface again this week is we are like cattle being corralled and slowly just moved a certain direction. And it's happening so slowly and so systematically that unless you're really paying attention, we don't even see it's happening. Which goes along with this. Part of what you're referring to right here is, okay, I'll, instead of getting my sodas and the lawn chairs out and just sitting down and saying, well, the van's coming, let's wait till they come, let's get our guns out. That's providing we still have them. Because, see, Europe no longer has them. They've already corralled the whole thing into a point of you can't resist. What you can do, throw rocks, So they took that away. I watched a video this last week where a man was making a point. One of the books that was used in the public school system in 1914 has been reprinted. And they're making a shove to get this back into some form of the curriculum again, which I say is awesome. Thank God somebody on the inside is finally starting to scream and say we're losing ground here. So he said, let's just take a page, and he just took a page out of the book. He said, read a paragraph. He said, this is a 6th grade level book in 1914. This was a textbook. And he read the paragraph, and I thought, oh my goodness, 6th grade? That's college material. Well, when he was done, he said, we put this in front of graduates from college, and they can't understand what that paragraph just said. What the 6th graders were learning in 1914. Wow. And here was his point. And again, I grew up a farmer, so I come to the picture with cattle. You just slowly shove them, and they just go where you want them to go. Here was his point. He said, we are in a long process. Now, he made the point excellent this morning. 800 A.D., this thing began. They've been shoving for the European Union since World War II. I mean, it's a slow, what do we have to do to get there? Let's just slowly move the entire populace. And his point was this. He said in 1914, if you go through this book, he said they were taught concepts to figure out what is going on and how to deal with it. Our grade schoolers were taught to figure out what is going on and how do you deal with it. He said we no longer teach that in the school system any place. Now we teach this is what we tell you to do, and this is how you should do it. And nobody even knows how to figure out what is going on and what do we do with it, like Jess just brought up. What would we do with this? ISIS is showing up. What would we do with this? Nobody has a clue because we have slowly been corralled, and he used the word Irvin Baxter used. He said, we've slowly been corralled, and we are more and more and more open to accepting socialism as a normal standard of life. And the one world government will be socialistic. So I thought, well, this is a move that has been on not just for a few years. This has been on for decades, maybe centuries. You know, the Trilateral Commission was founded back when the country was founded. And their whole purpose is one world government. The rising up thing, let me touch it now that we've made the big story, and then if you want to add something to it, you can. The rising up and saying no. You know, that is a good question. I've read and heard numerous things from different angles on that. We should, we shouldn't, we will, we won't, why we should, why we shouldn't. And I haven't settled on that one yet. I really don't know. It ensures you're going out quicker, maybe. You know, you start shooting at them, they're going to shoot back. Like I've said before, if which is another, here's another little thing. We have, I think it's a 2-night video set we got a hold of from a Christian source, Christian counseling source. Mary got a hold of it because what they're finding is a lot of these people coming back from war feel so guilty for what they did. They're believers. They don't know what to think about this. They come back from war, and their lives are falling apart psychologically because they have no shelves to put this information into. So they put together, I think it's a 2-part video set that I believe we're going to show here on a Wednesday night or a couple of Wednesday nights later into the fall, that gives the biblical scriptural basis for when and why man needs to fight war. Because what they're trying to do is make a framework for our servicemen who are coming back who don't know how to plug this into their faith and their belief system. They're trying to make a framework so they can plug that in. That is going to be, I haven't watched it yet. That is going to be good information. Going back to what you're saying, I don't know. When is the time? You know, if maybe it's because we're already preconditioned to accept everything. Our forefathers had a clear understanding of when it was time to pull out the guns. Maybe I'm already foggy is why I don't know. So go ahead and give the follow-up, and then we'll go on to somebody else. I don't know how to answer that. I haven't settled it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, you don't need guns to defend yourself. Like you just
Correct.
You need a motivation and the spirit to survive. I mean,
Yep.
Is it wrong to teach Ezra, hey, they're here to cause your mom harm, defend your mother, like flee, defend yourself, make war on them, run if you have to. Like, is that wrong to teach him that? Is that, I don't know.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. When and exactly how and so forth, I'm sure that'll shake out as time goes on. But any time we are attacked as a person or as a faith or whatever, scripturally speaking, we were always given the right to defend in Scripture.
I mean, for me, I'm going to teach him it'd be better for you to stay in the fight and make them kill you than them to capture you. I mean, that's still a martyr. You're still dying for your beliefs.
Still dying for your faith, yeah.
But they're not plucking your toes off one at a time or anything, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's wrong, and I'm trying to settle it myself, but it's kind of what I've decided to go with.
So there's one of those questions that, what are we going to tell our children? You know, I don't know if any of us really have that settled. Let's see. Let's go over here first.
I guess what I have really felt an internal struggle about with the end times is exactly what Jesse has said. And what I have heard lately, unlike Jesse, who has had military training, I have heard just very recently that There has been a huge push in the United States to try to go as Europe to take away our arms. But what I've just heard is they're not too worried about us really anymore. Because unlike Jesse, who's been in the military, the average person
Won't do
has
anything.
not psychologically
Ready.
been trained to take another life. So where do we stand?
Yeah.
And that's an issue that
Yeah.
I guess I would love really scriptural training, background. What do we do?
Yep.
Are we just, again, I would rather go out with one bullet than start missing pieces of my
Yep.
body one at a time.
Yep. And
So-
like the example I brought up in service, as a parent, now this is pray to God it never happens, but you know what? It is already happening in parts of the world. As a parent, these parents are taking their 2, 3, 4-year-olds, whatever they can carry and run with, and they're throwing them over the edge so that they can't use those children against the parent, rip off arms, poke out eyes to get you to deny your faith. We'll leave them alone if you just become Islam. But if you don't, we're going to just rip them apart a piece at a time. Now, from God's perspective, how does he look at all that? Because you're right, we're not psychologically prepared to make those decisions. We've lived in peace and comfort and everything so long that, and like he's saying, well, I'm going to prepare my boy to make those decisions. I think we need to have some form of preparation in our lineage for this. We know violence is coming. So I think those videos are going to help us. Later in the fall, we'll do those, and it's one of these ongoing things of, good point. What do we do with it? Was there anybody before?
I have a question. I have something
Okay.
to add to that. Like Jesse, and like I was reading, I just seen a movie recently about a siege that happened in Vienna, Austria. It was Christians in Vienna, Christians in Europe that were being sieged by the Muslims. They were coming.
Yeah.
This happened in 1683.
Okay.
Now, as late as that, the Muslims have been trying to take over the Christian world for many, many, many centuries, and that's what's happening still.
Yep.
So my thought is, what's happening to us in this country is that we have become so complacent that the military is going to protect us, that as Christians, back then, they stood up. It wasn't the military, it was the Christians who stood up against the Muslims that were coming in, our God against your God.
Yeah.
And as I see what is still happening, it's going to be the God against the Muslims' God. That's good. That's
That's
going to
the
be
end
the
result.
battle.
Yeah.
So in this country, we are so lax to say that as Christians, we will not form a military, we will not form a militia to fight for our God. That's what we need to do. We need, in this country, to form, as Christians, an alliance. Not so much we need to have arms, but to raise our voice and say that we are not going to, as Christians, let you people take over what we believe in.
Okay, good thought. I got 2 points with that. One is obvious, but if you don't stop and think, Dan made the point. If in the past Christianity wouldn't have fought back, you and I wouldn't be here. It'd be all Muslim world.
Yeah, because they wanted to take over, they thought through Vienna they could take over Rome and then they could fall, the whole Christianity would fall.
Yep.
Which at that time, luckily, it didn't.
Yep. So so that's a good point. If they wouldn't have fought back, where would we be?
Yeah.
Okay. Second point is this: when he brings up the idea of, and I'll just, I'll try to say what Dan said, because I felt everything in the atmosphere change, and I want to just check, make sure I felt it right. When he brought up the idea of Christians need to form a militia and we need to fight back, everything in the atmosphere kind of went, ee. How many of us, that makes us feel strange to think of, we would form our own little army and fight back? What does that make you feel like? I'm trying to figure out, was that just me? What did I feel? And the question I've got is that part of the corralling the people to go a certain way to where we've already been given the mentality, to stand up for your faith and take it to the point of guns, that just seems wrong. Has society already been corralled to that mentality? To where it's like, oh, they're the weird ones. They're the militia. The government always tries to paint them weird. So I got stuff rattling inside of me going, well, how much of that is soaked into me? Because it sure wasn't in George Washington and these guys. They stood up and fought back. It sure wasn't in all the people who did the Crusades and the stuff that Dan referred to. They stood up and fought back. And they didn't have any issue with it. So is that goofy feeling that happens either in me or in the country or whatever, when you bring up the common citizen bearing arms and going after this? Is that part of the reason we feel goofy about that? Is we're already been convinced to a point of, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right. Well, yeah, if you don't fight back. Let's go here. She had her hand up for a while, and everybody will get their turn the longer you wait.
I was thinking on going along that we're taught to turn the other cheek. We're not taught what that means. We're taught we're weak-minded people, turn the other cheek. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. So then when we think of battle and all that, we think, well, do we protect ourselves? Do we turn the other cheek? Do we, that's where the confusion comes in as well in that subject.
Yeah, I think I agree with you because that whole thing's been taken out of context. Turning the other cheek has nothing to do with war. If someone, that's a personal offense. It's a personal, if someone hits you on the cheek, they just slapped you across the face, verbally or otherwise. Well, do you take up a gun and kill them on the spot? It's like, no. But I'm agreeing with you. That has been taken and applied to everything. And you can no longer, as a nation, go to war because a true Christian would turn the other cheek. Well, if all they're trying to do is insult me, I might turn the other cheek. If they got a gun and they're running at me, I might shoot back. It's a different. Turning the cheek is an insult. Trying to kill you, that's a whole different program. Let's go here and then we'll go that direction.
In early American history, our forefathers printed the Quran and issued it to important people and leaders and politicians so they would understand the enemy. They knew back then. And it was everybody's responsibility to read the Quran and know they're an enemy. And it was an interesting thing to find out. And also, just recently, commander of a military ship ordered the Bibles to be thrown overboard. And I don't know if people realize this, but
really?
if you go on Roku, you can search and find out all kinds of things that are happening within our own government. They're trying to de-religion the government and the military. So
now this was part of our country government? They threw the Bibles overboard?
Yep, ordered the Bibles.
Hand that up to Jess, that mic.
Yeah.
Just making a point that there was an official order that had come down that they tried to come because every day I'd bring my Bible into the facility we worked in, Parwan.
This was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, Parwan, Afghanistan, and there was, I think I was like 4 or 5 months in the tour. They decided no more Bibles. They could be offensive, but the Qurans are okay. The Bibles are not okay. And it's like, well, I'm reading my Bible on my break time in an office by myself. It's where I find comfort and joy and gets me through my day. I don't see how that's offensive, but yeah, there was a big push, and they eventually, by the time we left, there was no more Bibles in the area we were operating out of. It was all just supposed to be left in your in where you slept, which is weird because there was a time in the military they would issue a Bible that you could keep in your pocket.
The chaplains.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was odd.
See, there again, just what I said before. It's just a slow corralling. And, well, maybe it is right. Maybe we shouldn't have the Bible in our pocket when we're in the foxhole about ready to die. Because, who would want to read Psalms 23 at a time like that? So let's leave it back at the, it's just a slow moving of the mentality of the people. Let's go to JP first.
So I think I've since I had kids especially, I guess really before kids I really probably didn't think a whole lot about it when I was single and by myself. It was more of a, I don't know, I guess I just didn't pay attention to it. I was thinking about, I don't know, motorcycles or something. But, I think what makes us debate that, what makes us debate defending our families and our innocent children is that corralling, that spirit that's crept up and taken the words of Jesus, just like the devil did when he tried to tempt him, and twisted him. And even, the very first sin was Satan twisting what God said.
Mm-hmm.
Did he really say you can't eat any tree?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about turning the other cheek?
Yeah.
And on a personal level, that's absolutely. But in the Old Testament, when they went to war, God told them to wipe out everyone. Mm-hmm. Women, kids, all of them, because that wickedness has been deposited in them from the very get-go. And I got to admit, it's tough reading the Old Testament, some of those things. And you look at your kid who has no concept of sin yet, which is very young before they start to get right and wrong. But, man, it's hard to go, well, and maybe that's where the generational stuff, I'm really excited to learn that. But I did have that little feeling when Dan started talking about that, about the militia.
I had it.
And even when Jesse said it. But that's that debate. That's what they've tried to deposit in us. What they don't come in and just start slamming on you. Because when they do that, you stand up and say no. They come in and they whisper a little something. You know? They're crafty.
Let me throw something in here. Probably should have said this when everybody was here. Just so everybody knows where I am coming from, I am not against the public school system. I'm absolutely not against it. I am against the ungodliness taught in it. That's what I'm against. And if that could be reversed, I have no issue with that. The day may come. We were just discussing this last week. Will the day come we send Ariana to public school? We may. There's some things that we have to measure out. But I'm not against the public school system. The problem is they are so infiltrated with ungodly principles, teachers. Seriously, do I want, and I don't want anybody to go to hell. I want everybody to get saved. But seriously, do I want a gay teacher teaching my child that marrying another woman is okay? Seriously, do I really want that? You say, well, you can't shelter them from it. Well, that's a good point once they become an adult. But I do have a side to this of train that child the way that child should go, and when they get old, they will go that way. And I am willfully saying, you people are wrong, you believe wrong, you're doing wrong. Here's my child. Would you please train them for me? See, my issue's not with the system. My issue's with what is happening in the system. And I just refuse to kneel to it. And I bring it like this morning. I brought up 1914, public school system, this, that, and the other. And sometimes people say, you're just anti-public school. I am not anti-public school. I'm anti-sin. The problem is we have gotten so dumbed down to seeing what's actually happening in front of us that our conscience doesn't even bother us when it's screaming at us going, can't you see what they're doing? For instance, same-sex marriage in this state is now legal. They have to teach it's okay in public school now. They have to. The curriculum's already in place. They have to. It's the law. Well, you actually want a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old who is a blank slate. They believe the authorities are telling them the truth. You actually want that blank slate written on that this is good. It's the law. Embrace this and tolerate everyone. In fact, you need to really encourage everyone to live their life exactly the way they want to, because that is right. You really want that taught to a blank slate? See, that's my struggle. It's like, my God, you are going to flat out teach my daughter sin. And I'm supposed to, aren't they doing a wonderful job? Are you serious? I can't do that. Something inside of me gets ugly and goes, I ain't doing that. Any more than if I got up in front of you and taught you to sin and told you how great this will be for our church, would you sit there and go, Pastor? Now that was the best I've ever heard. No, you'd probably either leave or throw me out. Well, then why is it acceptable in that realm? It's just, so I want it clear, I'm not against public school. I'm against the garbage that's coming through it. And if we could clean that garbage up, I see nothing wrong with the institution. My problem is the garbage. Anyway, go ahead.
At the Battle of Armageddon, when the Antichrist's forces and Jesus and we are with Jesus, will the side of Jesus, will there be casualties, death? I mean, will there be casualties of that war? So I have that question. And then, kind of in the same vein of thought with the current arena of questions, when it comes to our personal perspective, when it comes to dealing with Islam, I am really struggling with if I'm at an airport getting on an airplane, and there's a Muslim or an Islamic person, not to have my guard up.
Prejudice, immediate
and that's what it could be portrayed as.
Yeah.
But I kid you not, whenever I see a Islamic person on there, it's like my first instinct is to say, are you part of the 75% peaceful, or are you one of the jihadists?
Yeah.
Does that agree with Christ and what he wants for us?
Leave it up to Dean to ask hard questions. First one's easy. The Valley of Megiddo in Israel, where the heart of the Battle of Armageddon is going to be fought, the blood will, I'm sure there's bodies and everything there, but it says that the blood and spots will get up to 3 to 4 feet deep. So there's going to be casualties. I mean, this is going to be huge as far as casualties is concerned. So that one's easy. Oh, you mean on the saints who are coming back? Yeah. Oh, no, we're immortal at that point. We can't be touched. We can't, That's going to be a lot of fun, from our side, because we've got God's approval. Go kill them. And they can't do anything to us. I mean, we're in an immortal body at that point. So, no, there won't be any casualties on our side. But on the human side, there's going to be a lot of casualties. Okay?
So, I mean, if I can kind of...
Okay, give him the mic back. Let him follow up.
Can you imagine in the media what would transpire during that time? I'm assuming that the media would still be in play, that they're probably in a warfare setting, and whenever they're listing what's happened over the last day, one side is like 0 casualties, no scratches, bruises, or anything, and the other side is like, 20 million or whatever it is. That's got to be some kind of psychological effect on the unbeliever.
It's going to be interesting because immediately after that battle, Jesus takes world control and sets up his kingdom, and the millennium begins, and it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to deal with, because there's still going to be media and stuff, I presume. What is he going to do? How is he going to, because he's not going to come as in a democracy thinking. He's going to come as a, you don't want to use the word dictator, but a theocracy. He's going to be a king. And he's just going to put a throat hold on everything. And I wouldn't doubt if he just shuts everything off to begin with. Just shuts it down. And then he reestablishes. But is a good thought. Now, your second question was, how do we look at these people? And by these people, we mean Muslims or Islam. Well, number one, they need Jesus like anybody else. So our first drive should be, is there a way I can reach them? Because the last thing we as Christians want to do is get afraid of them and start posturing ourselves in fear of them, because now we're no longer of any use to them, and we're no longer of any use to him. Because our fear will determine what we do, rather than the Holy Spirit saying, go talk to that person. I can't, I'm afraid. So the last thing, fear is never of God. So we don't want to posture ourselves in fear and withdraw from them. They need us to find a Savior. How do you look at them? Boy, that's got to be Holy Spirit led. That first perspective is they need a Savior, and we've got to be in their life to help them find one. How do you not get prejudice? How do you not stereotype? Because human nature goes to, well, there is one. And now what do we think? And I'm just going to make a thought. I don't know if it's the answer. I think we have to mature to the point we can do it. Because true stereotyping or prejudice is immaturity. There is no prejudice in God whatsoever. I mean, he created every color, he created every creed, he created the whole works, and he loves them all equally, and they all have the same opportunities, and from his perspective, they're all family. But then God is fully mature. That's why Jesus said, be mature as your Father in heaven is mature. We don't always look around with that same maturity, and out of that will come stereotyping and prejudice. I think it's going to demand a growth on our part, and it's going to demand more growth on our children's part. And the longer this goes on, the more mature they have to be in this area of, to be of use to God's kingdom, you can't give into an immature way of seeing eternal souls. And let's just kill them, get rid of them, that'd be the best for everybody. Can't do that. They need Jesus too. So that is my first thought on it. I think we all have. We've never been challenged in this area. In America, we've never been challenged in this. So why would we be mature in this area? I think it's going to be a challenge to mature us, to grow us, so we handle things in a mature manner. Let's see. Let's go JP, then we'll go Kerry, and we'll go back to Jess.
I just wanted to comment on what Dean said about the Christ's return, and that when he comes back, the studying that I've been doing a little bit lately, kind of refreshing some stuff. That word right there, there's a few different words for coming, but that one right there is parousia. And
is this the Armageddon one?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. When he, the final coming back, kicking butt, taking names. Yep. That parousia it's a picture of a king riding back in. Not to, the word battle is almost misleading, because battle almost implies that there's
he could lose.
Any chance of anything. It's just him coming in and sweeping everything clean. And those who are held captive in the flesh, which would be us, we see him coming and rise to meet him in the air and come back in with him triumphantly, and it's really just wiping out wickedness at that moment. That scripturally, who knows what it'll actually look like, but the words used about it really...
a king just leveling the playing field.
Yeah, it is. He just walks in and he's like, it's like Silas thinking he could even compete with me in anything. He can't. He has no ability to, so he may kick and scream or whatever, but I'm coming in and I'm doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah. Good point. Kerry?
When you were talking about Europe, I hate to go back to that subject, but that hit me too, and the thought was, is because they don't have debt? Is that what makes them the big
No, they got a lot of debt.
Power?
Does anybody studied up in Europe, why are they the greatest economic power on earth now? Because they got debt. That's what they were worried the whole thing was going to collapse, just like the U.S. Somebody Google that.
Yeah, how would you research it? Just by Google?
Yeah, just Google it. Google knows everything. Don't know if it's always true, but knows everything. Go to Jess next, if you would, please. Thank you.
I have a comment about kind of what Dean was talking about with prejudice stuff. And before I went overseas, and some of my fellow troops and stuff, there was kind of they did kind of set like almost a prejudice precedence underlying, like, and I think prejudice just comes out of fear, basically. Fear and just lack of knowing. Fear of the unknown. But for what Dean was saying, when I was overseas, I would my encouragement to you is just get to know. Just go get to know them. Because when I was overseas, I made really good friends with my interpreters. They were all like hardcore Muslim. And I had hours of conversations about Christianity with them. And they would talk back about Muslim and Islam. We'd go back and forth. And you almost, once you get to know them as a person, and not just like, oh, there's a Muslim. You get to know them as a person. You actually develop a compassion of the indoctrination that they've gone through. And there's a serious indoctrination. And once you understand that, you get really compassionate for them, because it's like, over there, you can't even use the restroom without hearing, like, the Quran being blared and prayers being blared over the loudspeakers in their towns. When I was overseas, I'd go sit in the office and have chai with our A&E counterparts. And I kind of picked up the name as Peltz the Sympathizer or whatever, but I didn't care, because I was building a rapport with them, and I was learning them, and I started to develop a compassion for who they are as a person. And all the prejudice, fear, and everything of the unknown, well, what if they try to, attack you? Well, then defend yourself. But, that's it. All that, once you get to know them as a person, and the compassion for the person themselves kind of clears up a lot of that prejudice. So I just can encourage you, just develop a relationship with them, and you'll see that they're a person too. They just have gone through like some hardcore indoctrination where they are just so blinded a lot of stuff. So
now there, I'll give them the credit that they have done far better than Christianity has in indoctrinating their gospel. Boy, these people, they know what they believe. Boy, they know it, and you're not going to detour them from it. Give them the mic back so everybody over there can hear.
I was just making a comment. They're mullahs, the people that recite their prayers. In our area, they had temporary mullahs, but an actual mullah who's done the studying can recite the Quran from cover to cover, the whole book. That's
serious indoctrination.
That's serious study and indoctrination.
Yeah. Yeah. And just that 7-year-old, that's my boy. Holding the head of a man, that's serious indoctrination. Of this is glorious, this is good, and it's like, oh man. But they've done a good job. But I agree with you. They're human. Behind that name, Muslim, there's a live human being who's going to live for eternity. Needs Jesus.
I'll just make a comment on that real quick before I make my other thought. Jesus. I love reading. There's books coming out. There's YouTube videos you can watch. He is after the Muslims, and he's showing up personally to them, and they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm the King of Kings. I'm Jesus." And once they're in his presence, they know, okay, this is God, and it just shows you that there's nothing to be afraid of, and he loves them, and he wants them in his kingdom as well. And
boy, and a converted Muslim is a radical.
Yeah.
Boy, if you read the stories of these people, once they come to Jesus, these people are radical.
Yeah, and he's showing up to them. But
go on.
I was also going to share, God many times shows me things in dreams about missions, and then also just sharing the gospel. And I've had dreams where I'm in a particular place, and I'm conversing with Muslims or whatever from a different country or even from here, and I'm trying to tell them about Jesus, and they don't know who he is, and I really believe that that's God's way of speaking. I want them. I want you to go after them. And even in studying missions, this is a big thing right now with a lot of the missionaries worldwide, is they're trying to figure out how to reach them because they already believe in God, who they believe is God, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so when you see a Muslim, honestly, like be moved with compassion for them. Don't be afraid. Just as Jesse said, they've really been indoctrinated. But my other thought was, actually at the beginning, what Jesse, his question was, do we fight back? What do we do? And I was just kind of thinking what the word says. And one of God's name, I'm trying to think what it is. It means God.
Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of War, service in the appointed time.
In the appointed time. And I was thinking about that. And when it came to what Jesus said, when you see the abomination that causes desolation, he's speaking to Israel, he didn't tell them to fight, he told them to flee. He said, get out. And so I really believe that there is a time to fight, and then there's a time to get out. And as I was telling him, Randy Mitchell, my mission mentor that taught me a lot of stuff, he's been all over the world, but when he goes to China, they try to catch him. Like, he's been chased down. He said, oh, yeah, I'm willing to be a martyr. He said, but you got to catch me first. And he said that should be the mentality of Christians. And even if they do catch you, can you get out and run? Because to just be a weak, oh, yeah, we're Christians and we got to be like Christ. He was quiet before he was, whatever, crucified. And he's like, you're not Jesus, man. You're a Christian. And he's like, catch me if you can. That's the mentality. And that always kind of stuck with me, where it was like, oh, okay, like I agree with that.
Cool.
Totally. So.
Did you find anything on that, Matt? What'd you find? Can you run that mic up to Matt? Just hand it over the edge will work.
So it said in 2007, they're looking at it from a GDP standpoint. So
Okay.
2007 to 2013, the EU had a larger GDP than the U.S., or 2012, sorry, and then 2013, the U.S. took it back over.
Okay.
But what's interesting is, I found this, and it's basically sheer quantity of the number of countries that they have in there. So this slide shows the GDP in 2010. So the U.S. is 14.8 trillion. That's in millions.
Yeah.
And then the largest one in the EU is number 5, Germany, at 2.9 trillion. So then when you figure in UK, France, and Italy are in there, and then you add in the other 24 or 23, whatever that is, I mean, you're going to overtake that eventually.
They all add up. Isn't it amazing the amount of information we have at our fingertips? Literally.
Well, and the other thing is they said, just some of the highlights I was trying to find stuff, it said Europe still views China as the leading economic power in the world, not the U.S.
Really?
No.
2010.
Yeah, so that's 2010, and then they're projecting out what they projected for 2020.
So they project China to go ahead of us quite a bit by 2020.
Yeah.
Of course, that's all projections.
And that's based on the IMF?
Oh, really? That's IMF? And
that's what it says on the bottom?
Yeah, on the bottom. Wow. Well, there it is, black and white and blue. Anybody else got a question or thought? All right, thank you for your time. Let's really give some of this stuff consideration. I'm looking to God give you wisdom and me wisdom, and we all pool it together and get some nuggets. You got one more thought?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Actually, about what you said earlier with the age-appropriate preparing for the kids, which I'm with you on, but one thing I've been challenged of, and the thing that popped into my head the moment you said it, was that 7-year-old has known that from birth. And granted, there's only so much I'm willing to show my 7-year-old, but when we talk about it, she does want to turn away because it's so shocking and horrific to her. Mm-hmm. She's never thought about somebody coming and taking her life and that sort of thing. And because we, in all honesty, we didn't do our job to prepare them. And so now we're at the spot where with Silas, we can prepare him from the very beginning, and there won't be something that he's going to be that shocked on. But so don't wait until they're a certain age to start mentioning that, I guess.
What do you say when? Yeah.
Because now it's even harder,
All right. Be blessed.